perspective from private developers. I have to mention that this event is a part of the Cooperation for Sustainable Organization, which is at large a part of our Humboldt Research Linkage grants, supported fully by the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation and in cooperation with Technische, Universitat Pembangunan Jaya, and Pembangunan Jaya Center for Urban Studies. As I mentioned before, this is our second Urban Talk series. We plan a series of talks trying to discover what it is, what it means, to define the private city and how it develops in countries in ASEAN, especially. And we've done the last one in last month. And from the first Urban Talk, there are a few conclusions that emerged and a few questions that also arose. Firstly, I would just like to wrap it up very quickly to update those of you who might not have been able to make it to the previous talk, who are now in attendance. Just very quickly, during our first Urban Talk, we concluded that we identified several determinants to the character of the private city. So investments and governance, utilities, as well as services are among the very important determinants on how a private city is run and governed. And from the previous talk as well, in practice, we understood from the first talk that the cases in Malaysia and Indonesia, that there were no existing private city in its purest form, meaning private cities that are completely independent from the government. It has yet to exist, but we will see, in development in the future, as we have now invited speakers from Vietnam, perhaps in other countries in Asia, the pure form of private city might emerge. We have yet to see. The third concluding remarks from the previous Urban Talk is that managing megacity is a growing concern due to the increasing urban dualism and inequalities. So what started from the government failures in delivering services and infrastructure necessitates a new model of urban management. And from this, from those points of conclusion, several questions arose in our previous Urban Talk. Firstly, how resilient is the new model of urban management, which we now, mostly refer to as a private city? And secondly, can private city development be more than just market-driven product? Can it actually be a place or a city where people do their daily life, where people live and perform activities and interact with the surrounding? And thirdly, and probably most importantly, how much are these models appropriate for sustainable development, for the sustainable development of the megacities in ASEAN? Hoping to answer those questions. In this Urban Talk, we have invited two of some of the biggest private developers in Indonesia. We have a representative from Jaya Property, Ms. Arum Prasasti, who's very kindly agreed to join us, and we have also invited Mr. Agus Surya Wijaya from Ciputra, who's currently developing a private city in its own form in Hanoi, Vietnam. Thank you very much for agreeing to join us, Bu Arum and Pak Agus Surya. Before we start the conversation, I would like to ask for your consent to record the meeting. We will record the meeting, and we will also later live stream it through through the university YouTube channel. To start off this Urban Talk properly, we will have several opening remarks. The first one, I invite Mr. Edi Yusuf, our Vice Director, as well as the Project Manager of the Corporation of Sustainable Urbanization. The time is yours, Pak Edi.
Okay, thank you, Bu Isa. I would like to welcome everyone to our second Urban Talk series. This is hopefully it's going to be the International Urban Talk series seminars, which will be running from in October until next year, sometime in May. So hoping that we get some insights from different sectors. The first one, we have some insights from academics. The second one, the one we're having at the moment, is going to be insights from private developers. That's why we're having Ms. Arum and Ms. Agus Surya. Thank you for your time to serve as keynote speakers during our Urban Talk series. So without further ado, I hope that we can have insights. We can have fruitful discussions during our seminars. And with that, I'll give the floor back to Bu Isa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Edi. The second opening remarks will be delivered by Ms. Stephanie Jurgens. She is the head of Division of Science and Technology of the German Embassy. We usually call her Bunani. Is already here and very kindly agreed to also give her welcoming remarks. The time is yours.
Okay, hey everybody. It's a great pleasure for me to be here again. I was here last time, and to be honest, I've learned a lot, and I really was able to witness the fruitful relationship Indonesia and Germany has. I mentioned in my last opening speech that Germany and Indonesia have an MOU on like mutual bilateral collaboration, and this is already 40 years old. And it's amazing to see this ongoing process. I mean, as we see now, this is like a cooperation between UPG, the Technische Universität in Dresden, as well as Alexander Humboldt Stiftung. So it's really great to see this. And I honestly could list you like a huge list now with the cooperations Germany and Indonesia has done. I'm not gonna do that, so don't worry. But maybe I just would like to mention like two. One is the tsunami early warning system. I guess a lot of people have heard about it. When the tsunami hit, Germany was one of the biggest donors as well to help to rebuild Indonesia. And since then, there has been like continuous new like funds and research and be going on. And you already mentioned that, last time we learned that there is no pure private city. And for me personally, it was really interesting because in Germany, we don't have privatized cities. We have certain parts in cities which are privatized. For example, the water disposal or like waste management. But since I came to Indonesia, or like currently I actually do live in a private developed city. So I can see how it works and I do see the difference. So it was really nice for me to see how this all plays together. And I think Indonesia and Germany, we're both very different countries. We live in two different hemispheres. Our culture is different, our structure is different in so many ways. And even though our cities are built differently, I still do believe that we together can actually learn from each other, from the good as well as the bad. And especially as we see now in the pandemic, it's really important for us to not just see ourselves as one country, but really rely on our partners or on our friends from all around the world and work together on this. And I mean, one thing which is really important to also understand is that if you want to develop science, technology, which then leads to urban planning, it's very important to also focus on education. And even right now, even during this pandemic, there are more than 5,000 students from Indonesia studying in Germany. Most of them are taking their PhD, and a lot of them are being sent over there through the DAAD. And I guess one of the most famous DAAD alumni is the late Dr. Habibie. So it's really great to see how all this developed. And usually those, when you study abroad and those people you meet there, you bring them back to your home country. And that's where like really great cooperations do start. Therefore, I think it's a really great step that UPG is organizing this event or this series of events, especially with like German universities and other organizations together to just, truly show how close we actually are, even though we're so far apart. So I'm really looking forward to learn more about this, and I give time back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ibu Nani, for the welcome remarks. Before we start to our first speaker, I would like to also invite all the participants to send in your questions through the chat room at any point of the presentation. Our team will manage the chat room, and we will ask, we'll read through the questions and have discussions with both speakers as soon as the talk finishes. So we're going to have the first speaker, and then the second speaker, and then we're going to have the questions and answers session. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to our first speaker, Ms. Arum. So Ms. Arum Prasasti is currently the Director or the General Manager in Property Industry of Jaya Real Property. She graduated from Institut Teknologi Bandung with a bachelor degree in architecture and then a master's degree in architecture from the same university. But then she studied again in strategic management in Prasetya Mulia Business School. She has 15 years of experience in property development, and currently is the General Manager Property Development 1 and 2, or the Deputy Director in the Head Office of Jaya Real Property, as well as the Director in Jaya Property Fatmawati. So Ms. Arum is a very valuable key person in studying what the private city means from the perspective of the private developers, especially in Indonesia. Ms. Arum, if you could just start right away, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Isa. Good afternoon, everybody. Nice meeting you here. Thank you for inviting Jaya Property to this exciting forum. Yeah, so I'm here on behalf of Jaya Real Property. Maybe I should straight right away share my screen, yeah, Ibu Isa?
Yes, please.
Okay. Please let me know if you cannot see the. Okay. Can you all see my presentation?
Yes, now we can.
Okay, great. Okay, Bapak Ibu, good afternoon. So today, in relation to private city, I would like to share the experience we have in developing our signature township, which is Bintaro Jaya. So yeah. So for a brief profile of our company, we are one of a sister company of Universitas Pembangunan Jaya, because Jaya Real Property was established in 1979 as a subsidiary of PT Pembangunan Jaya. So PT Pembangunan Jaya was established in 1961. It was the first strategic partnership between private sector and the government. In this case, is the government of Jakarta. So Pembangunan Jaya was established to help Jakarta, the capital city Jakarta, to fulfill the vision of President Soekarno at that time to build Jakarta as a modern metropolitan. So yeah, and in 1994, Jaya Real Property was public listed and owned by the public in IDX of 36.41%. So yeah, we started from 1961. The PT Pembangunan Jaya, its first project is the urban renewal project of Kawasan Senen. It's a trade and market district in Jakarta. And then in 1979, we start develop Kota Taman Bintaro Jaya. It started from 20 hectares of residential compound with first introduced the idea of the garden city. And then in 96, the Bintaro Jaya developed to 1,400 hectares. So it's no longer only a residential compound, but becoming a city itself. So Bintaro Jaya become the Bintaro Jaya, the professional city. And in 2009, we developed our second phase development with a new urban plan. And also in 2013, we started to develop our first transit-oriented development in Bintaro Jaya Exchange, which I will tell you all about it after this. Yeah, so this is, we develop townships and also commercial centers, and also strategic investment like toll road and utility infrastructure hospital. Yeah, so this is what I come here to talk about and to share our experience, and hope we can discuss and have good feedback from you. So Bintaro Jaya, the professional city, we committed to develop Bintaro Jaya to embrace life from every angle. That's why we call, or we tagline the 360 living city. So how do we build a 360 living city? Yeah. So for a background, Bintaro Jaya located as the frontmost satellite city of Jakarta. So this is the perimeter of Jakarta. Actually, we developed in the south area of Jakarta, and we developed, expanded to suburb of Jakarta. And you could see here, we are surrounded by 4 toll roads, which we have adjacent to 2 toll gates, and also a commuter line, a train line. And we have 3 train stations adjacent to our development. So Bintaro Jaya is the nearest suburban area from Jakarta, and it is also located in the south side Jakarta, which is generally has better natural resources like better climate and better fresh water. But because it's the frontmost satellite city, then it is inevitably become an entry point from Jakarta, from other area to Jakarta. So this is quite challenging to build or to develop Bintaro Jaya to be private as residential area. So how we develop Bintaro Jaya? Yeah, this is the land map of Bintaro Jaya. So from 1979 to 2009, we developed our first development. Maybe the Jakarta people know it better with the sectoral development. So we developed Sector 1 to Sector 9. And then starting 2009, we wanted to create a more modern urban plan, more sustainable city within our second phase development, around 700 hectares. So adjacent to 2 toll gates and then 3 train stations. When in 2009, this toll road is not yet developed, but right now it's already operated. So how can we develop a 360 living concept? So our background of thinking started from the lifestyle, the commuting lifestyle of the professionals of Jakarta, because we committed to build the best living for the professionals of Jakarta. So Jakarta people who mostly commute by private vehicles, if we calculate the cost or the spending for the commuting private vehicles, we spend significant amounts on gasoline and toll road fees, and also parking, as we know, is not cheap. And the cost that also significant, but sometimes we don't account, is the vehicle value depreciation, when we buy the vehicle, and then also the service or the maintenance of vehicle itself. So we calculate it's approximately about 30% of their income, only to commute. So if we transfer this spending for public transportation, for example, the commuter line is only 3,000 rupiah one way, and Transjakarta is only 3,500 one way. So if they can use public transportation to commute, they only cost 2 to 5% of their income, and then the remaining that they previously used for private vehicle commuting, they can allocate the excess income to improve their quality of life, such as better education, better health service, and also better nutrition. So this is our background of thinking. So Bintaro Jaya commit to develop convenient and free ways for our residents to reach public transportation, and also better amenities for their family. So we come up with 3 pillars of the 360 living city concept, which is the urban plan itself, we plan the urban the master plan livable. What is livable? It's urban plan, so it's convenient for the residents to live, work, and play. And then after we build the city livable, and then to make it workable, we built an excellent infrastructure and accessible mobility networking to connect the city to everywhere in Jakarta, and also virtually by the internet access. And then the third pillar that we think that's also the most important to make the city sustainable is the people, the residents. So we want to establish a health and environmental conscious community to make the city sustainable and long-lasting. So this is the first pillar, which is the urban plan. How we create our master plan. So having two toll road gates within the proximity of development. So we put the entry point to the train station for TOD centers. TOD centers is not only entry point to our establishment, but also a destination itself. And then we built the employment center because it is a city, not only a residential compound. Excuse me. Yeah, in this CBD, we built employment center. And then to connect the two toll gate, the two entry point, and also the CBD, we built the backbone of our development, which is our main boulevard. Along the main boulevard, we put a commercial strip. Commercial strip, it's more a daily need commercial area. Why? To cater the residential district. So the residential district can have a privacy within close proximity to facilities in the commercial strip along the boulevard. And then the second pillar is the mobility network. So how do our residents reach their office in convenient way and in a relatively cheap way? So from their home, we built the pedestrian walk and bike and scooter lane along the boulevard. And then we provide inner shuttle bus, which we name Intrans Bintaro Jaya shuttle bus. So this is the network for the inner shuttle bus of Bintaro Jaya. As you can see, it connects from the residence area, the yellow ones, with the commercial area, the red one, and then the employment center, the blue ones, and ultimately to the TOD center if you commute to the Jakarta area. So from the TOD centers, you can choose between commuting by commuter line, which only 25 minutes from Jakarta downtown in Sudirman Station, or you can ride JR connection bus, which connect to the MRT line, or the Trans Bintaro Jaya bus, which connect to Trans Jakarta bus line. So this is the map of the pedestrian walk and the bikeway map in Bintaro Jaya. You can see inside the residential districts and along the boulevard. And this is the pictures. There are toll roads, buses, train, and the pedestrian walk and bikeway, and also e-scooter and bike sharing. And in our TOD centers, so our TOD centers connect residential area to multiple options of convenient public transportation to Jakarta city center. So they create it as high density super blocks with mixed uses. There is intermode hub, which connect from the Bintaro Jaya development to Jakarta, and then the public open space in Central Park, and then retail areas, offices, high-rise residential, hotel exhibition centers, and also entertainment centers, such as ice skating ring and aquarium. So people from Jakarta don't have to go inside Bintaro Jaya to visit the entertainment center here in TOD centers, because it's in the entry point of Bintaro Jaya. So it doesn't affect the privacy of the residents. And then the commercial districts, which is the central business districts, where we develop mainly for employment centers or offices. This is like the office of the Hero supermarket, and then the office of a pharmacy company, and also supported by big retail centers, high-end landed residential, and also premium high-rise residential. And this is the commercial strip along the boulevard. As you can see, the commercial type building is smaller and more varies, like office parks or shop houses, standalone retail center, service apartment, fresh market for daily needs, food areas, and it's reachable within walking or bike distance from your home. And this is how we develop our residential district. So we built residential district in a land of size 30 to 40 hectares, only reachable by one entry point from the boulevard to make sure the privacy of the residents. And then we built Central Park in the center, around 2 hectares of Central Park, with a retention pond for flood control, and then the boulevard around the Central Park, as you can see, is highly tree shaded in the boulevard. And then we built the residential cluster around the Central Park, about 100 to 200 houses each clusters. And this is the most important, and also the one that we're most proud of in Bintaro Jaya, is our community. Start from 2009, we create a community, which is Eco Community Beyond Green for a Better Living. That is that a green lifestyle is not only created by the physical environment, but also the social environment. So we promote, we educate our residents to be more actively participate on health and environment sustainability initiative. And it is supported by our estate management. So what we do in our community, the first is the active participation of our residents. How we educate them and make sure they have enthusiasm in actively participate. So we create annual competition between each clusters or neighborhoods, and then giving them awards. Which neighborhood has the most green initiatives, and this promote very enthusiasm in our residents. And we have giving award for this competition award for many years, more than 10 years. So we're quite proud of it. And this is also what our estate management hold events and campaign for environmental friendly events, such as Car Free Day. We hold Car Free Day along our boulevard every third Sunday every month, and also Earth Hour, energy efficient campaign, and our boulevard is also known for its Bintaro Loop. So they are very famous along between runners and bikers. So there are many competition, Bike for Earth, Run for Earth in Bintaro Jaya Boulevard. And also this year, we start to campaign on waste management. So these are examples of our green statistic. So as you can see that Jakarta has issues in groundwater usage, which cause in the decrease of the ground level of Jakarta, which become lower than the sea level. So in Bintaro Jaya, started 2012, we gradually decrease our groundwater usage and use more sustainable water or surface water. As you can see, from 60% of groundwater in 2012, now we achieve 95% in more sustainable water. And the second one is also the big issue in Jakarta, which is the air quality index. As you can see here, in reference, Jakarta in their worst day around 165 of AQI. In Bintaro Jaya, in our previous development before we built our new urban plan, we can achieve a moderate level of air quality index. But in our newer development, in our residential districts, as you can see, we can reach a good air quality index. Okay, so what's next for us? We are also excited about our new development in within proximity of the west side of adjacent to the Jakarta Outer Ring Road to Toll Road. So we have area of 176 hectares of land. We call Bintaro Jaya 1 West when we want to develop it as an active lifestyle destination. So this area will be focused around intensely commercial and mixed-use developments, all seamlessly connected to Central Park, Central Lake and Parkland. And also, we will build an active lifestyle hub as new sports center, which will serve as a development catalyst. So this is the images of the development. It's not there yet, but we plan to build it, start maybe next year, yeah. So as you can see, the orientation of development is in the Central Lake and Parkland, and connected by a bridge, a pedestrian bridge, and also as a development catalyst, which we can promote, because the next thing after the environmental friendly and the key to gain health is to move, to actively move. So we want to invite all our residents and Jakarta people to have more active lifestyle by creating a one-stop sport and health facility with arenas flexible to be transformed into temporary events all year round. So this is so far what we come up with. Okay, I invite you all to visit Bintaro Jaya and see for yourself. Thank you. Thank you, Ibu Isa. I hope I'm still within my timeline.
Oh, it is very much. I was just going to remind you that you have 5 minutes remaining, but thank you very much. But it was really interesting to understand what Bintaro Jaya stands for, especially the efforts in maintaining sustainability within its community. It's really great. And we will ask questions a bit later after Mr. Agus Surya's presentation. So just hang tight, stay tuned with our presentation. And I would like to again remind all participants that you can always send your questions through the chat room at any point of the presentations. And if you have any questions towards certain keynote speakers, please also notify to whom your questions are addressed. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our second speaker, Mr. Agus Surya Wijaya, who is currently the director of PT Ciputra Residence and the director of Citra Garden City. He is actually one of the most powerful men when it comes to private developers in Indonesia. He has extensive experience in developing private cities from Hanoi, in Hanoi, Vietnam, in Shenyang, in China, in Cambodia, in Singapore, even all the way in Kolkata, in West Bengal, India. So all of his experience in the private developers, as a private developers, will be valuable, very valuable for us. Mr. Agus Surya graduated also from Institut Teknologi Bandung, so one alma mater with Ms. Arum Prasasti, and then went on to study Masters of Science in Engineering in the University of Michigan Ann Arbor, United States, and then again Masters of Business Administration in California State University. I am very excited to listen to Mr. Agus Surya's presentation. So without further ado, Mr. Agus Surya, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ibu Isa. I will try to share my screen first.
Yes, please.
Can you see my screen?
Not yet. Yes, it's loading now. Yes, it is up and running.
Okay, now you can see?
Yes, it's up now.
Yeah. Okay, maybe first of all, I would like to introduce Ciputra Group. Ciputra Group is basically the core business is development, property development, but we also have other business like education, telecommunication, and plantation also. And at present, we have around 131 projects in 4 countries in 48 cities. Our total development area as a group, 11,000 hectares. Most of the big development, we have 71 township and residential projects. And as for office, we have around about 460,000 square meters of office, about 1,200 rooms of hotel, 6 shopping centers, water parks, and golf courses. In this opportunity, I'd like to share our perspective from the Indonesian developer in investing in ASEAN countries. What we think is that if we would like to invest in the ASEAN cities, first we need to assess the market situation, market size, and what kind of products we are going to offer in that particular city or country. And second, we also need to make sure that the macroeconomic condition is good and is also growing. Because if the economic is not growing, it's very difficult for the private sector to develop a new city or a new town. Social and political situation also is the most important factor. We need a stable social and political situation. If the social and political is not stable, it's very difficult to do the business in that particular country. And legal framework also very important, especially the law and regulation related to the real estate and to the land. And the availability of the local contractor and supplier are also very important, because sometimes in certain countries, the quality and the capacity of the contractor and the supplier is not what we expect. And regarding the
Pak Agus Surya, you are, yes.
The availability of human resources, the tax regulation, the local culture and lifestyle, and also if we would like to develop the city, we need to get the support from the government, because we need the government to construct the main infrastructure, while we as the private developers, we construct the internal infrastructure. So the government will construct the main infrastructure up to the border of the project, but inside the project is the private developer that need to construct by themselves. Regarding the steps and stages in investing in ASEAN cities or countries, first, we need to do the market research and detailed feasibility study, and follow with the detailed business plan. And we also need to make sure that we need to prepare equity funding for the preliminary expense and preliminary operation. After that, we need to get the investment license from the government. After we get the license, usually the project will be eligible to apply for the bank loan. And the next step is to recruit the key management people to obtaining operational licenses, and to do the pre-operation stage like training. We need to develop SOP, the IT system, and etc. And at the operation, and then we can continue with the operation stage with marketing and the construction of the project. We also need to be mindful about the constraint. If we invest overseas, first is the local market preference. Sometimes it's not what we expect. The detailed market research is very crucial. In Vietnam, we found that all the landed houses, we need to have concrete roof. This is because of the typhoon. That's why all the landed houses in Hanoi, they have concrete roof. And also in Vietnam, in Hanoi, the pricing of apartment also slightly different as compared to the pricing in other city in ASEAN. The price of the apartment at the lower level is the most expensive one, because the market worried about the risk of fire or elevator breakdown. While in other city in ASEAN, the price of the most expensive apartment is at the higher floor. And also we need to be aware of different common practice. In the beginning, when we start our project in Hanoi, the buyers or the residents, they are not familiar with the service charge. So when we charge them for the service charge or maintenance charge of the building, they complain to the newspaper and to the government. So we need to explain to them, to the government also, and to the people of Vietnam, that service charge is something which is very common in other countries. And it takes time to explain to them. Also, the change of the regulation is another risk that we need to face. As we understand, in developing country, the regulation keep changing. The less developed the country, the more the regulation will be changed by the government. This is also sometimes creating problem for our project. And also, we need to be careful regarding the negative reaction of the people toward the foreign investment. Especially the Newton project is involving the land. The land issue is always very sensitive for the people. So we need to make sure that we give the information to the media and to the people that the project will bring benefit for the people as well, not only for the investor, but also for the people. And if we are choosing local partner for the project, we need to do a thorough due diligence. Because if we choose the wrong local partner, it can create a headache for us. Usually the local partner from the government is more reliable, because the government really look not only for profit, but also for the development of their country. And I'd like to bring also to your attention that a few items that we need to focus on when we are developing the Newton project in the ASEAN cities. First, we need to make sure that we can adapt to the local custom. And we also need to have endurance for the market penetration, because in the beginning, maybe the people might not be so receptive to the product that we are offering. We also need to have sufficient funding for unexpected constraints and challenges that we are going to face. Not only sometimes, but most of the time, the constraint is really not what we expect. It's unpredictable. We also need to have good communication with the government to ensure the support from the government. We need to build public and social facility like clinic, school, hospital, commercial center to ensure the inclusiveness of the project to the people living inside and outside the project. And we need to make sure we have corporate social responsibility activities. For the sustainable development, we need to ensure that we have the standard operating procedure for environmentally friendly lifestyle. And we need also to training the local staff. It's not good if all of our management are foreigner. So the local staff involvement is very important. In this slide, I would like to share our project in Hanoi. The location of the project is between the airport and the city center, between the second ring road and the third ring road. The location is the project area is about 300 hectares. And the expected population of the project is about 45,000 people. This is the master plan of the project. In the middle, we plan to have a golf course surrounded by a residential area, the landed houses and high-rise apartment. And for the location nearby the second and the third ring road, we plan for the commercial. The status of the project at present, total, we already built more than 1,000 landed houses. We have built more than 27 towers of apartment. The total population is about 24,000. The Vietnamese, the local people, around 75%, and the foreigner living in our project, about 25%. This is just the plan. We start the project, the construction in 2002. This is the land condition in 1995. Mostly is empty farmland. And this is the construction progress in 2003. We start the construction of apartment and landed houses. This is the gate of the Ciputra Hanoi International City and the apartment. The landed houses, this is the most prestigious and more expensive landed houses in our project in Hanoi. The cost of the one landed houses like this with the land area of 450 square meter is around 2 to 3 million US dollar. It's just the aerial photo of the Ciputra Hanoi, the landed houses area. This is the apartment. The landscape inside the project and the green area inside the project. We have 3 schools. We have United Nations International School, Singapore International School, and Hanoi Academy inside the project. We have sports facility, including the fitness center, the indoor swimming pool, the driving range. And we also have estate management services, 24 hours, 7 days. This is the aerial picture at night of Ciputra Hanoi. And at Ciputra Hanoi, we also have an eco-culture program. This is the program, in-house program to ensure the sustainable development. Our vision is regarding we understand that the building accounts for about 40% of the energy consumption, and while city contributed up to 70% of greenhouse gas emission. And we think our role as developer is very important to reduce the pollution. Our mission for the eco-culture program is to reduce energy consumption, to minimize the use of water, to increase the efficiency in our waste management, solid and liquid waste management, and to embrace the lifestyle, to campaign the lifestyle of our residents so that the lifestyle is environmentally friendly. This is a detailed program of the eco-culture. One is the bioclimatic analysis for our master plan. Second is the eco-path. Third is the solar panels, street lights, LED outdoor lighting. Fourth, dual waste bins. And the fifth one is the eco-culture community campaigns by the website and the billboard. Regarding the bioclimatic analysis, our master plan was originally based on sunset analysis. We focus on designing clusters that maximizes the availability of sunlight and reduces general heating or cooling. We think this will save much energy for air conditioning and lighting, while at the same time it's also increasing the overall comfort for our residents. We also look at the orientation of the building carefully, the facing of the building, to align with the shadow with the function, to align the shadow with the functionality of the site or the building. The wind direction is also part of the bioclimatic analysis. This is to ensure that we are encouraging good circulation of air going through the streets and going between our buildings. This is the eco-path that we are building. And we also have the solar panel for the street lights. We have installed solar panel throughout the estate to power our street lights. Dual waste bins are also introduced in our estate so that the resident can participate in maximizing our reuse and recycling efforts. We have large area dedicated for landscaping in Ciputat, Hanoi. Therefore, we have a substantial amount of green waste that we process into natural compost. And this compost we use to fertilize our landscape, therefore allowing a full green waste recycling process. This is the eco-culture community campaign. We are using billboard we installed inside the project. This is also another billboard campaign to save water. This is another billboard community campaign to encourage the lifestyle of the recycling of the waste to reduce the pollution. And besides Hanoi, in this opportunity, I would like also to share our experience for our project in Phnom Penh, Cambodia. The total project area is 260 hectares. We focus on high quality residential property, and the project expected to have 18,000 people. This is the gate of the project, similar with our Hanoi gate. This is the master plan of the project. In the middle, we have golf course surrounded by the residential area. And near the main road, we are building the commercial area. This is the golf course designed by Technische, 18-hole golf course. And we have landed houses inside the project. This is the shop houses in the project. They call it flat house and link house. And this is the golf course. The golf villa, the houses facing the golf course. We also building the water park in our project in Phnom Penh as the recreation facility. Okay, I think this is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Agus Surya, for that very interesting and really illuminating presentation on how the private developers operate in countries that are not in Indonesia, which we have not been, previously aware of. We have already a few questions, so we're just going to go to the questions now. We've got one. I think if a frequently asked question, actually, with a few of the participants asking similar theme questions, is that they are curious in learning how the private developments can actually align with government's developmental plan and other government's programs. So how is your relationship? How is the relationship among private developers and the governments, and how you negotiate what just the operationalities and the services that you can deliver, cannot deliver. So this is basically questions for both of you. Bu Arum, maybe you can start us first, and then Pak Agus Surya, just feel free to add on your answer a bit later.
Okay, maybe I read a question from Ibu Febi about the relationship between the Jaya Real Property and the government of Tangerang Selatan in this case. So maybe different from other countries, in Indonesia, private sector participation in creating aligning or in creating policies of the government is quite significant. So yeah, the participation of the private sector is quite big in Indonesia government. Yeah. So and also you can see that Tangerang Selatan is only become a town, a city, only started from 2008. Previously, when Bintaro Jaya started to develop from the residential compound in 1979, it was still the Kabupaten Tangerang. So started 2008, it became a city, a town. Yeah. So I can say that Jaya Real Property and other developer in Tangerang Selatan, we create the master plan, the urban plan of Tangerang Selatan together between the government and the developer or the private sector. So this is how we also can assure that our concept, our development is in line with the Tangerang Selatan government, because we create it together. We develop the urban plan guidelines together. So maybe that's the first question, yeah, Ibu Isa.
Yes, Bu Arum, thank you very much. Pak Agus Surya, would you like to add your answer to the question?
In my opinion, that the support of the government is very important. That's why, in order to get the support from the government, we need to convince the government that the project will bring the benefit to the people and to the government. So we need to convince first the government that this project will create employment, will increase the tax revenue, and will bring more facility for the people in the surrounding area. After we convince the government, usually if the government convinced, they will support our project. I think all of us, the developer, understand that the main infrastructure, like main road up to the border of the project, main power line, main electricity, water supply, main pipe of the water supply, usually support provided by the government up to the border of the project. But inside the project, we develop and we construct by ourselves. That's why government is very important. Not to mention if we have land issue or social issue, we will need the government support to solve this issue. But of course, before we get the support from the government, we need to convince the government first that the project will bring benefit to the people and to the government. I think that's my feedback.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Agus Surya. So the government, it's a mutual relationship, yeah? So the private developers need the support of the government, while also the government will also benefit from the developments that are conducted, that are being built by the private developers. That's really interesting. We have actually quite a few questions coming in. We have questions from Zulfika Kusarsanto to Bu Arum. Yeah. Is there any best practice from world-class cities, Singapore, New York City, Barcelona, or somewhere else, that inspires the development of Bintaro Jaya or other Jaya projects? And if so, how can your team adopt it? And have there been some challenges?
Okay, so yes, of course, that before we can determine how we develop our cities, our township, we have benchmarked to other megapolitan world-class cities like Singapore, Tokyo, and we evaluate which city has the similar culture, similar challenge as us. Yeah. So, and one maybe most important take from other cities, other megapolitan in the world, in our opinion, is the public transportation usage. You know, like maybe Indonesia is quite behind in terms of public transportation infrastructure, but we believe, the Jaya Property believes that the future is going to that way sooner or later. So starting from, I believe Jaya Property Bintaro Jaya is one of the first city, the first township, the first suburb that educate and give a concern on the transit-oriented development. So yeah, that's our most significant take on the our learn best practice from other cities.
Okay, thank you very much, Bu Arum. We have now we go to Pak Surya's question. To Pak Agus Surya, actually. Thank you for the insightful presentation. And the question is, how do you see the social contract between private developers and their customers or their residents? Maybe, can you answer that?
Can you say it again? The social contract?
Yeah, the social contract between the private developers and the residents or the customers in this case.
Yeah, I think usually in every country they have different regulation, but like in Indonesia, in Vietnam, in Cambodia, they have the law that after certain years we need to hand over the estate management to the resident. Let's say after 5 years or after 3 years. And the concept of the government is the resident to manage their estate by themselves. But in the reality, in the practice, if the residents start to manage the estate management, usually the quality of the estate management going down because they don't have the professional management to manage it. Because we, as the developer, we have the management to control everything, to check the quality. That's why this issue is a bit sensitive in every country, not only in Indonesia, but also in Vietnam, and also I think in China also and in other countries. We need to be careful. Sometimes our intention is good. We would like to maintain the quality level of the management, the estate management, but the resident may receive it, he would like to take more profit from the estate management fee. This is always the issue in every country that we are facing. I think that's my input on this issue.
Okay. Thank you, Pak Agus Surya. We have a really good question also from Deprizon Shamsunur, Mr. Deprizon. This question is actually addressed to Bu Arum, but we believe that this is a really interesting question. So we would like to also hear from Mr. Agus Surya how it's implemented in Hanoi right now. So what strategy did Bintaro City apply to minimize the gap of social economy impact at the surrounding of Bintaro City? As if, from the last urban talk, as I mentioned very early in this seminar, one of the concerns is that there's a rising inequalities and a rising, dualism in the urban development of mega cities, and private development is, one of the. It could happen around private development. So we would like to also know from both Ms. Arum and Pak Minister Agus Surya, how do you manage these things? How things are different from the perspective of the urban developers?
Okay. From Bintaro Jaya, well, as you can see from our land bank shape, it's not like the whole area, but it's more in line with or to the settlement around us. So as I mentioned earlier, that because Bintaro Jaya becomes the entry point to Jakarta from other part of Tangerang Selatan and also Tangerang, so we cannot close our development from other part of the area. And they're there first before us. So we respect that, and we give access for them to come through our development via our boulevard, but we keep the residential district private, so we can manage, we can balance between the social interaction of Bintaro Jaya from other part of the area, and also the security and the convenience of our residents. Maybe that's the balance that we're trying to create in our development.
Thank you, Ms. Arum. Mr. Agus Surya, if you would like to add to the answer?
Yes, I think this issue is regarding the inclusiveness of the city or of the project, right? And this is always an issue also, because in general, the purchasing power or the status social of the resident inside the project is higher as compared to the outside of the project. Not only in Indonesia, I think in all developing countries is the same issue. What we have been doing to lessen this issue, first is we need to have a solid corporate social responsibility activity, like we give donation to the school outside the project, or we need to give scholarship also for the resident outside the project to attend the school inside our project. And second, maybe we can try also to build facility like hospital, clinic, that can be enjoyed not only by the resident inside the project, but also by the resident outside the project. And the third thing that also very important is public relation. Even though we already very good, but if our PR is weak, sometimes the people can perceive different things. So public relation, we really need to manage it well. We cannot ignore the public relation, because people might understand differently, especially for the foreign developer investing or develop the project in the foreign country or foreign city. That's even more sensitive. For Indonesian developer in Indonesia, developing the project in Indonesia is already sensitive. But for Indonesian developer developing in Vietnam, even it's getting more sensitive. I think that's from me.
Thank you, Mr. Agus Surya. Building on that question, we also have something that is a bit related. So Ms. Novi Paramita asked about the price of housing. Is there any different types of housing cluster with different prices for different social status in each development or in each city? As we know, as I'm sure Mr. Agus Surya and Ms. Arum are well aware of, the government of Indonesia have the balanced residential regulation, the 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, that you must build social housing in some areas and you can build commercial housing in other areas. How do Jaya Real Property and Ciputra at large in Indonesia and also in Vietnam that now Mr. Agus Surya is in charge of, how do both developments deal with this regulation, if there's any in Vietnam? Because I'm not aware of that. Thank you.
Okay, for the housing price, I think because in Indonesia there is no regulation on the land price, the land acquisition price that we acquire from the previous owner before we started developing for the real estate. So the house pricing is mostly dictated by the land acquisition price, and also the market price of the surrounding of the area. And then as developer, we enhance the value of the land by creating a robust infrastructure, facilities, so it becomes value for money for the buyer given the price. And also the building specification also dictate the housing price. So yeah, in Indonesia, I think it's mostly dictated by the market value because there's no regulation. But so in Bintaro Jaya, as for the land price, it's not quite possible to build smaller houses like the low cost income house. So we build the low cost residential in high rise type, in high rise shape. So we build the apartment Emerald Bintaro to fulfill the regulation within the Bintaro Jaya proximity area.
Thank you, Ms. Harun, for that answer. Mr. Agus Surya, do you have more to add?
We are in the opinion that actually the low-cost housing or low income or housing for the low income should be determined or should be decided by the land use approved by the government, not by the regulation that in one area you need to, if one developer develop one expensive housing, 2 middle cost housing, and 3 low cost housing. I think that's not the right approach. Yeah. But the right approach is how to, in the city, the city government need to decide it which area is for low cost housing, which area for more expensive housing. If the area for low cost housing has been decided, so the government needs to support with mass transportation. But if for the more expensive housing, maybe the resident they have their own car, they don't have mass transportation, and also the infrastructure might be different. If the low cost housing high-rise building, maybe for the more expensive house is villa type, is landed houses, so different requirement. I think the government need to decide or need to approve the master plan first, which area for local for the low cost housing and which area for the more expensive housing, and then the government needs to provide the infrastructure accordingly. That's our opinion on the low cost housing policy.
Yeah, that's very interesting, Mr. Agus Surya. Does this happen in Vietnam, or have you worked with projects that is
in Vietnam? Yeah, they don't say it low cost housing, but they perceive apartment, high-rise apartment, as a more affordable housing.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they determine the ratio between. Not determine. They plot the land, which land is for landed houses and which land for high-rise apartment. Because the perception of the Vietnam government, apartment is more affordable housing, and then the house is more expensive housing.
So there is quite a lot of similarities between the development in Vietnam and what happens in Bintaro Jaya. So in both areas, in both developments, the low-cost housings are built in high-rise, residentials as opposed to having landed houses. I think it's also because the price of the land is very high, so it's much more expensive to have landed houses, both in Hanoi and in Bintaro, it seems. Thank you. We have very good questions also from Professor Haryanto, which is one of our esteemed lecturers here in Universitas Pembangunan Jaya. This question is actually addressed to Mr. Agus Surya. If we compare the land law regulations between Indonesia and Vietnam, can you say one or two regulations in Vietnam which attract the Ciputra Group to invest in Vietnam as developers? So what attracted Ciputra to actually build and expand the development in Vietnam?
Yeah. First, maybe regarding the land law, I think the land law between Vietnam and Indonesia, there is a similarity. Mm-hmm. Because it's like we call it leasehold, but in Vietnam, when the company own the land is leasehold. But when the land sold to the local people can convert the leasehold to the freehold. It is in Indonesia is like HGB, mm-hmm. Become hak milik, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's the land law. There is a similarity. Of course, not really the same, but there is a similarity. But regarding what is the incentive for Ciputra Group to invest overseas, we have a few reasons. One is to acquire or getting bigger market, because instead of our market, instead of having market only for Indonesia, we are going to have market for China, Vietnam, Cambodia. So we are going to have bigger market catchment area. And second is for the purpose of risk diversification. If we have operation in many countries, and then the stability of the revenue or income stream is more stable. One country can go go for recession, go down for recession, but the other country maybe it's in the booming time. So it's for diversification. And the third incentive is by having overseas operation, we also train our management to get international exposure. So the management is become more skillful and more capable. I think that's the three reasons why we have overseas investment.
Thank you for the answer. That's really interesting, and it actually makes sense if we think about it. Of course, investing in overseas is very challenging, but it seems to be quite rewarding as well. We have also, I think we have some more questions here. We have some, again, from Mr. Deprison. What's the challenges for Ciputra to contribute in the national economy, especially in the construction industry during the pandemic in Indonesia, I assume, yeah, in national economy?
I think during the pandemic, everybody knows that our sales also slightly going down by 25%. But we try to minimize this by have a more active digital marketing to ensure that we still have sound financial condition and also stable cash inflow. So far, with digital marketing, I think the digital marketing worked very well during this pandemic period, and we also anticipating a new normal. While after this pandemic, I think the lifestyle of the people we think will be different. Physical distancing, we think that is going to be for quite some time. People will still having physical distancing, even though the problem of the pandemic can be solved. That's what we think. Regarding the contribution of Ciputra Group itself to the national economy, we are trying to get stable income during the pandemic period, this pandemic period. So we don't need to lay off the employee if possible, and we can maintain the the growth of the national economic if we can operate in a stable mode. That's what we think.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Agus Surya. We have another question from Mr. Edi to Bu Arum. To Ms. Arum, in one of your slides, you stated that sustainability is is implemented in the 360 living city concept. But how do you, Bintaro Jaya, actually implement sustainability in the master plan of Bintaro? And can you also comment on if you had any failures in implementing sustainability throughout the years?
Yeah, okay. So we understand that home is where we live, like long-lasting. So for our family also, so sustainability is quite an important element in developing a convenient, long-lasting home. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's why we believe that well, creating a sustainable master plan, I think there are many theories, many science on that, yeah. Like the choosing of the material, and then the layout, like the between the flood control and also the open space. But I think the most important thing to reach the sustainability is by the lifestyle of the residents or the people. Like, and yeah, well, honestly, it's quite difficult, and also it's like we need to move like little tiny steps each time, like baby steps. But I think like slowly but sure we move to the right direction, because the concern of the people is the most important in creating the sustainability, creating the sustainable city, the lifestyle, how you manage your waste, how you use your energy and water efficiently, yeah, more things like that. So we believe the key in creating sustainable city is within its community. That's why we create a community, ecology community. Maybe that's what I can share with you.
How about in Hanoi, Mr. Agus Surya? Are there any specific design-wise, when you're designing the master plan, that purposefully applies the sustainability agenda?
I think yes. We are. If we prepare the master plan, we always factoring in the issue of the sustainability, because the big project, especially Newton project, usually is a very long-term project, and sustainability itself, usually we have three components of sustainability. One is the environmentally sustainable, second socially sustainable, and third is financially sustainable. This is to ensure the stability of the project for long term. Environmentally sustainable, I think we already understand, like by climate analysis, we use recycle, saving the water. Socially also very important, social sustainability. We need to ensure that the social harmony of the project, inside the project and between inside the project and outside the project. And financially also we need to make sure that this program financially is feasible, because otherwise if not feasible, maybe the sustainability program after 5 years we cannot continue anymore. So we need to prepare sufficient budget. We need to ensure that long term, what is the source of the income from the resident or from the government or from the developer. That's also very important. So we need to be environmentally, socially, and financially sustainable. That's what we think.
Yeah, that's a very good explanation. So sustainability is not only in terms of environmental, but also financial sustainability, social sustainability, and so on and so forth. That's really interesting. Thank you very much. We have another question coming in actually. Let me check. This is addressed to Ms. Arum. How does Jaya Real Property participate and collaborate with the local government in terms of developing public transportation, such as BRT, LRT, and MRT? And since you mentioned earlier that the public transport system in Indonesia is quite behind compared to the other cities in ASEAN, and as this could be very beneficial for the residents of Bintaro Jaya, and how do you manage the collaboration?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, basically we 100% support the government in creating more. I think the network for the public transportation is there, like the commuter line, but how we can promote the usage of the commuter line. So not only we have cooperation and good relationship with the government of Tangerang Selatan, we also building our good relationship with Kereta Api Indonesia and also the MRT Indonesia, how to improve constantly to make our commuter line better and better, and more people, whether it's from the low income or the high net worth, are willing to use the public transportation. So this is what we want to achieve. For example, like in this pandemic era, like when the market is quite stable and not too exciting, and so we utilize this time to improve our infrastructure. Like this year alone, in August and last week, we broke the new image, the renovation of our two commuter line station in around Bintaro Jaya, which is the station Pondok Ranji and the station Jurang Mangu. So Jaya Real Property here conduct as an investor. So we build as our social responsibility, and also to be more in line with our development. So hopefully next year in 2021, when the condition is better, then we have a more convenient, more comfortable station, and also like in Pondok Ranji, we built another access of station Pondok Ranji, so you don't need to go through congestion to reach station Pondok Ranji. So yeah, we as the developer, we have a strategic partnership not only to the government, but also we connect between the government and also other stakeholders. So yeah, that's what we come up with. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's important not to just build, but also encourage the residents to actually use the public transport that you have developed in the area. That's a really excellent point, Ms. Arum. Thank you very much. Another question, it's very technical, but we are curious that in Indonesia, we have the regulation of infrastructure handover. So in theory, the private developments, infrastructures, public infrastructure that I build within the area of private developed region must be handed over to the government in certain time. But as I understand, in reality, it's not always happening, as the regulation dictates. And I was wondering how Jaya Real Property deals with it, and as well, if there's any similar regulation in Hanoi, in Vietnam, Mr. Agus Surya, that you can share with us, it would be very valuable.
Yes. Yeah, so in our township in Bintaro Jaya, we have our estate management who handles the management of the township and also the infrastructure. So yeah, some of the infrastructure from our previous development we already hand over to the government, but yes, we still work together in although not completely 100%, to maintain the quality of the infrastructure. But yeah, and also that's why the good relationship with the government is very important in long term, and also the infrastructure, like, in our new development, we still manage the infrastructure because we haven't done all the development yet. But maybe when the Bintaro Jaya has completed its development, of course, we will hand it over to the residents and also the government.
Thank you. Mr. Agus Surya, how's the experience in Hanoi?
Yeah, what we experienced, the regulation-wise, regarding the handing over of infrastructure to government is similar between Indonesia and Vietnam. We need to build infrastructure according to the certain specification approved by the government. After we constructed the infrastructure, after certain years, by regulation, we need to hand over, because infrastructure is a public facility. So we need to hand over to the government. But in Indonesia or in Vietnam, it's the same case. The government is very hesitant to accept the handover, because once the infrastructure hand over to the government, the maintenance cost will be the responsibility of the government. This is always the issue usually. So when we are trying to hand over the infrastructure, and then the government is a bit hesitant to accept the handover, because the responsibility of maintaining the infrastructure will be their responsibility. That's what we experienced.
I think it also happens in Indonesia. Lots of governments are sort of stalling the handover from the private developers, as far as I know. Thank you very much. We have one last question, actually, and it's a bit philosophic, if I may say so. How would Ms. Arum and Mr. Agus Surya, as private developers, how would you define a successful private city? How would you put definition on what is a successful private city? And what would constitute as a failure? If in your years of experience, have you ever experienced failure, and what would you define as a successful project? Bu Arum, maybe you want to start us?
Wow, that's a very deep question. Yeah. Can I have one day to think about this?
I'm afraid we don't have that much time.
Okay, so what we consider success, of course, that as a private city, as you can see, Pembangunan Jaya was established to help building Jakarta to become a more modern, humane city, a modern megapolitan. And as Pembangunan Jaya, maybe our colleagues from Universitas Pembangunan Jaya also believe that Pembangunan Jaya always want to create something in value, something meaningful for their users, for their stakeholders. That's also our commitment in Jaya Real Property. So like in creating township, we don't want only create a robust, a good, a green, a large of excellent physical environment, but also its social environment. So we want to make our residents' life with their family more meaningful, also humane, as their chosen home forever. So I think our success is to create create meaningful facilities for our residents. Maybe that's what I can answer with this short of time.
Yeah, that was actually a really deep answer as well, and meaningful and humane and experience.
I think the Universitas Pembangunan Jaya also share the same value, right? Because I think that's what Pembangunan Jaya is all about.
Yeah, I think so too. Agus Surya, if you could add your questions for the last few minutes of our question and answer session.
Yeah, for Ciputra Group, I think we think the Newton project is successful if the project can bring benefit to the government, to the people inside the project and outside the project, and also acceptable to the people and to the government. That's the most important. But as the indicator whether the project is successful or not successful is we can check the value of the property inside the project. If the value is keep going up, that means the project is successful, because which means that the project accepted by the market and by the people. If the property value of inside the project going down, which means the project is a failure, which means the market cannot accept or maybe creating some problem, social problem, this problem, that problem, and then the market is going down. I think that's easy indicator. If the project, the price of the houses inside the project or the apartment keep going up, I think that's a successful project. That's what we observe.
Yes, that's also very true, Mr. Agus Surya. So thank you very much for all of your answers, and also for all participants. It has been a very lively discussion. We've got so many questions coming in, and it's been great learning from both of you and also from all of the questions. Before we conclude the seminar, we would like to invite Professor Bernhard Müller from Technische Universität Berlin to give us a few closing statements and a few concluding remarks. Professor Bernhard, please, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for this very exciting event. I especially loved the presentations, and it was a great discussion with so many questions, and the answers gave so many good insights into the details of the, let's say, daily life and difficulties as well, challenges of private developers in developing our cities nowadays. So thank you very much for that. I have three small comments or observations, maybe. The first one, I would like to start with a more general consideration. Where do we go to when we talk about cities? Cities, do they become more a product in future, like a merchandise, yeah? So that we create something and we sell it. This is, of course, not the origin of the city. The city was created in an evolutionary process. People lived together, the density grew, and more people came, more and more activities came about. So people developed the city in a way by themselves. But of course, there were a lot of difficulties as well with the speed, with the size of this process, and difficulties to manage, especially daily life, to make it appropriate and so on. And therefore, I think the private developers nowadays have such an important role to play. But of course, we have to think about what kind of cities we would like to have. Do we want to have cities which, let's say, are made up of cells of the more rich people or the more affluent ones, those who are the less affluent ones, those who are in the middle, and we have a patchwork of such different areas. I think that's an amazing idea. On the other hand, it would, let's say, strengthen some, or would make a difficulty more important, because then the place where you live would tell others how much you earn and whether you are a good customer or not. And we have to be careful of that, that we are not trying to differentiate and to separate the cities in such cells, because maybe at some point the situation will lead us to an explosion, a social explosion, which we see in other countries as well, which have gone this past. A second observation, I think, so regarding this issue, I think the cooperation and the joint management between the government and the private sector, finding a balance and so on, is so important. A second point, and it was interesting to hear from both of our speakers today, where the factors which are influencing the decision-making of developers to invest in urban development and so on. So of course, the products or the new areas which are created, they are market-driven. So this is not people-driven, it's not socially driven or whatever, they're market-driven. And that's a fact which we have to accept and which is okay. And this is, but it has impact on the way of managing things. So we have heard that for private developers, not so easy because they have to adapt to local situations. They have to deal with eventual complaints and so on and so on. So again, here I think the good communication with the government is very important in order to make sure that we can create cities which are not exclusive, which are in a way cities for all, like what we have formulated in the Sustainable Development Goals and in the New Urban Agenda, which plays a role and is in a way envisaging what we understand by a city when we talk about a city in the future. And there's a third observation which I made. I think it was mentioned by both presenters as well, the importance of integrated concepts for new urban areas, for creating these private cities or privately driven cities. And this, when I talk about an integrated concept, I do not talk only about planning. I do not talk about the land use concept, but about management. So we heard, for instance, that the transport, the mobility issue, of course plays a big role, but it's connected with everything else. So we saw in both cases the ecological approaches, so to create eco-communities. So with a lot of impact on the environment and much consideration regarding that. And that, for instance, creating a community is a goal. It's not just, let's say, a mere planning concept, but this means you have to deal in everyday life with it. So this was extremely interesting, and we have seen that high standards have been reached. I mean, what we have heard today is international standard, top-level international standards. So congratulations. I was happy to see that, especially as I managed an environmentally oriented urban regional development institute before I retired. But again, I think we have to come back to this first point, the patchwork city. So if we go for the patchwork city, if this would come up, then we have one danger, that we leave the more market-oriented potentials to the private developers, and we leave the less attractive parts to the state. And this would create a lot of problems. We have seen these pioneering examples, but we have to think about how are we going to, let's say, upscale them and make them a mainstream for urban development as such. And this again brings up the cooperation between the state and the private developers, as well as between the civil society and the private developers. And yeah, besides my thanks for these wonderful insights and discussions today, I would just mention that, of course, we're going to follow up with this. And we are having more talks in the coming months, where we hope to have as well some government view on the urban development issues, and as well the civil society view. So thank you very much, and good luck for future endeavors. And I'm sure we are going to meet again, and I'm looking forward to that. Thank you very much for the attendance as well.
Thank you very much, Professor Bernhard Müller, although I do have to apologize for a slight slip of tongue that I mentioned. Professor Bernhard Müller is from Technische Universität Dresden instead of Berlin. I had a slight slip of tongue. I would like to formally apologize for that. However, that is a very appropriate and very succinct, concluding remarks from Professor Bernhard Müller. And it's very important, and it's a nice note to end our seminars today. But to build on what Professor Bernhard Müller has said, we do plan to have another urban talk, which is going to happen around the first few weeks of February, so the early February. And this time we plan to invite a representative from the civil society or the communities who are active in city development field, to also have their perspective, as opposed to only having perspective from the private developers. We've got perspective from private developers, we've had perspective from the academia, and now we are about to invite those from the community to hopefully create a holistic and a full understanding on what it is, what it feels, and what it means to have a successful and a meaningful private city development in major cities and countries in ASEAN. Before we end the seminar, I would like to invite all participants to turn on the camera, as we will have a bit of photo sessions, a bit of to document these very lively seminars. Is the host, Mr. Adi, are you going to take it, or Mr. Imam? Going to take a screen grab, please. If you could, if you've got no, internet problems or anything, if you would like, please turn on your camera. As we're going to, we have two screens now. Mr. Adi.
Yes, it's good. It's good already.
Okay. We've got the first one. Please smile for the camera. Have you taken it? Okay, the second one. Okay, thank you very much, all ladies and gentlemen, all participants, and especially to Ms. Arum and Mr. Agus Surya. We've learned so much from the both of you, Ms. Nani, for coming and giving the welcome remarks, Professor Bernhard for giving the closing remarks. Thank you very much. Reminder again that we will give out certificates for those who filled out the attendance form twice, and we've got also a link to join our consortium in the chat box. Before we end the meeting, you can still access it, as well as, again, reminding that we'll have the third urban talk in the early February, and we will invite civil society representative to discuss deeper, we expect to discuss more about, the inequalities and how the dualism and how they deal with the development of private cities in ASEAN. With that, I end the meeting as a moderator. I apologize if there were any mistakes on my part. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you very much for asking the questions, and I bid you goodbye. Good afternoon, everyone. Have a nice rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody very much, Pak Agus and Bu Arum. Thank you for everybody, Pak Budiarsa. Thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you, Berham.
Have a good weekend, all.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah.
All the best. Bye-bye.
Yeah. All the best. Thank you, Nani. Thank you. I think we can turn off the Zoom.
Yes, are we going to end the meeting?
Yes.
Yes, please, Bu. You can end the meeting. I will end the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Edi, everybody. Thank you, Bu Isa.
Thank you.